welcome to another episode. Hi, welcome to another episode of We Be Life in Pod, the podcast where we talk about the highs and lows of life and what even is my life. I'm Sabina Richards, and this week's episode is the hustle culture hangover. Yes, that's a real thing. Let's get into it. So what do we have? I sleep when I'm dead, team no sleep, rise and grind, and I think those are some of the most popular ones. And then also the term workaholic. I use that all the time to refer to myself. And I also believe that the multitasking is a myth, at least for me. Some people are great at multitasking. I'm not. I've learned that I'm not. So I don't even add that to the stress of my life. So those are some of the phrases that we hear all the time, which is very common, and we use it all the time. And it's sad but true, because the nature of the society that we are in, especially those of us who are in New York, or not just New York, but whatever concrete jungle we're in, because like Alicia Keys says, New York is the concrete jungle, right? So wherever we are, if we're in the city and we have to go through the hustle and bustle of making sure we attain or achieve success, that's considered the hustle culture. So a little bit of information and background on the hustle era, because when I was doing my research, I did find that there's information on it, on how it came about. So the hustle culture is defined as a mindset and societal phenomenon that promotes an intense, all-consuming focus on work, productivity, and success at the expense of personal being, downtime, and self-care. And I think that we, at some point in time, all fall into that definition, because at some point we traded productivity for overproductivity and wore that as a badge. But that are all of the things that kind of led to burnout. So again, in conducting research, I found that the phrase or the term of the hustle era and the hustle culture and the grind came about from, I think it was James Adams, around 1931, during the Great Depression. So that's when it states that this phrase came about. And then it continued throughout the 90s and the 2000s. I think it just continued ever since, right? Because we have the concept that if we work hard, then we will achieve success. We have all of these different things that contribute to that. Of course, when it started during the Great Depression, then we have also social media, which promotes it's not the illusion, but it does promote that hustle culture. It does promote that you gotta go, you gotta keep going. And then also the illusion of the American dream. Many people come from all walks of life under that illusion of the American dream. If you work hard and you put in your time, you will have success. And that there's freedom and opportunity for everyone. That's true to an extent, because we do know that certain groups have greater access to certain things than others. And for the individuals who may not have certain access, the road or the path to get that is longer and can be harder. So it does require that hustle culture. It does require a rise and grind or team no sleep, because you're trying to achieve and trying to catch up so that we can even survive. I know personally for myself and many loved ones and other people that I know, there's a feeling of you will never stop working hard, and not just working hard to attain success and to reach a level of comfort, but when you want to go beyond comfort and you want to live well, there is that constant, I got to keep going, I got to keep going, I got to keep going. And it's often when we push ourselves to that level of exhaustion, we ignore our body's warnings. And our bodies, if if we are not listening to the signs and the warnings of our bodies when it tells us to, relax, go slow, reassess, then it will shut us down, right? And again, based on the economy right now and what's happening, as I stated, there is a hustle culture. I don't think that we will not be involved in hustling, because even if you have just a 9 to 5, you still, and I'm saying you, but I'm including myself in this category. Even if we have maybe a 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever your schedule is, you might have one consistent job that provides a consistent income, but we're always looking for other opportunities, other streams of income to supplement that. Again, when you look at the reality of what's happening, we will be working for a consistent period of time, and working can be different. Okay, so some people may be entrepreneurs and are taking their businesses to that next level. You're still working at that. Some may be doing a startup. Some may be going to a 9 to 5. So at different levels, we're working to achieve something, whatever that something is for us. I'm a prime example of the hustle culture. And while preparing for this episode, I realized that because I mentioned, I think in episode 1, that I've always gone to school and worked. So I've always been a full-time student and had a full-time job, and I'm very thankful for that. And so when I think about these examples of hustle, the hustle culture hangover, I'm definitely someone who fits right into that. Perfect example. I'm laughing because this was just too funny. I remember one time, well, not once, but at least twice in undergrad while I was working, I was taking no-dos when it was time for finals. I don't think they sell no-dos anymore, but I would take no-dos. And one time in conversations with my boss, I mentioned to her, I'm like, yeah, I'm taking no-dos. She said, what? You can't take that. That's going to, destroy your heart and mess with, give you whatever, panic attacks, or whatever the case may be. So I didn't listen, did not listen. And, finals was coming up. My friend and I, we were both working full-time jobs and going to school at night. And so we would have, I think it was 2 classes a night. We had 2 classes a night each. And so we got to school at like around 6:15. And then by 9 o'clock, we were done with classes. So from 9 p.m. to, I kid you not, 6 a.m., maybe even later, like the sun always met us at school. So there were multiple times we spent 24-hour days studying and then going home, getting ready, and go back to work and doing the same thing over again. So I definitely can understand just an example of school, because when we think about hustle culture, sometimes we might think that it only applies to people who are working, but it could be students too. Students have, and they may not have a job while working, but just school a lot is a lot in and of itself. So during that time when I was taking no-dos and having those 24-hour days, I think one day, my VP saw me, not even the AVP who I reported to, but the VP saw me, and I was bouncing off the walls. He stood at the door frame. I think he saw me at least three different points in the day. Stood at the door frame, and he was like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm fine. How are you?" And if you know me, that is not me. I am very even keeled, sometimes very monotone, very good morning, how are you? How may I help you? Et cetera, et cetera. Very, very much me. So throughout the day, I was just bouncing off the walls. Yeah, okay, not a problem. You need that? Okay, I got that. Let me get that for you. Like, he looked at me and he said, go home. It was mid-afternoon. He said, go home. He was, matter of fact, don't even come back tomorrow. I'll see you the next day. So I was out here doing 24-hour days multiple times a week. And then my body was just, I guess my nervous system was just all over the place. Okay. So that's just the simplest example of hustle culture that I've lived. And I think I'm still living that hustle culture life, because now I'm a mom, and that's a whole other different responsibility, because once you have work and then you come home, you have a job at home. Okay, and I have a ton of examples from grad school and undergrad that I could talk about, but that was just the funniest one. I think another time I was taking no dose still, even though I was not supposed to be taking no dose. I think one time it gave me a panic attack and I had to walk into the ER. Thankfully, I was working at the hospital at the time, so the ER was not that far from our office. So, wow. Examples of just going and going and going and going and going, because we have goals and we have all these things that we want to attain, but we ignore the signs of our bodies. And that could really, really, really impact us. So already talked about social media has definitely promulgated the hustle culture, the grinding culture, because we're seeing a lot. Well, we only used to see, like I mentioned in a previous episode, the success and how everyone is so successful here. But then we weren't seeing all the burnouts and all the late nights and all the crying and the devastation and the worry that they may not meet these deadlines, right? But now we're seeing all of that more. So burnout is real. I'm laughing just thinking about the example I gave earlier when I was an undergrad. That was a crazy time. So, but burnout is real. So here's some prime examples. These are my personal examples that are examples of burnout that, we may not think it is, but it definitely is. And I know the very first example, in addition to the one I gave while I was an undergrad, the very first example I can think of was, of course, for me, the pandemic, because I'm telling you, that changed me drastically. I went from going into the office 5 days a week, being around people, interacting, to now having at least my commute to debrief, right? Because I drove in to and from work. So I at least had the commute to debrief to my music and just, have that moment to decompress before I got into the house and I unload whatever at home. But now I was home 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the expectation was that you were working the moment you wake up until there was probably no end in the sight, especially when the pandemic hit. And for a lot of human resources professionals, from what I've been told, I don't want anyone to be like, well, that didn't happen to me, I wasn't aware, I knew what I had to do, etc., etc. But for a lot of human resources professionals, I've been told we were like a fish out of water when the pandemic hit, because the laws, the rules, everything was changing so quickly, and we had to quickly adapt to everything that was going on. And then we had to become contact tracers for something that many of us were not trained for. So it was a very challenging time. And we weren't hiring at that point in time. So the little bit of staff that you had to make it work. So it just became, that point was extreme. I experienced extreme burnout and was looking for different outlets. I mentioned that I'm a workaholic, and I am one of the people who kind of hit with work, when I looked up the definition of a workaholic, because I'm like, I want to see what that means. It definitely was me. I'm a workaholic. I'm the one who just consistently works and works to what could be my detriment at times, because overproducing and, wanting to, before, not now, before, using to think I could do everything on my own. And you can't. You can't. That's another way that we get burnout. When we think that we can do everything on our own. Okay? If we're taking on too many responsibilities, whether it's at home, whether it's in our friend groups, whether it's at work, we have to learn how to say no. If we're skipping our lunch breaks. Now, I know a lot of times we do the eat while we work, right? So sometimes you can do that if, there's a really pressing deadline. But I truly believe that people really should take their lunch breaks, especially at work. You should. You need to take a moment to step away, right? Now, how will that look in your personal life? That could be just making sure you actually take time to sit down and have a meal, because we could be so busy in our personal life, running our errands and dealing with different family concerns and different issues, that if we're caretakers for family members who may be ill, we often don't take time just to take care of ourselves. So that's something that we need to do as well. We need to delegate. Use your network. At work is delegate, but this could be delegating in your personal life as well, because if we have a team of people or our network that we trust and we know will be a support for us, let's utilize that. Let's trust our people, because here's the thing I've learned from me in corporate America. If you have a team of people that report to you and you don't think that you can delegate to them, or you don't trust that you can delegate to them, that's a reflection on you as an individual, as a leader, because you didn't train or teach or prepare your team, right? It does not look the exact same way in your personal life, because your personal life is more of a network, your support, your friends, family. But there is a similar mindset, because if those individuals in your network cannot trust and you don't find that there's a safe space in order to ask for help or to lean on them, then that's also an issue. Then you might need to find a new network. Yeah, because we can't do everything alone. There are some things you can't do alone, but we do need each other. That's just a fact. We need each other. Okay? Overcommitting to social events. I used to do that. A lot. I definitely had a people-pleasing moment where I would overcommit to social events or even family events or even work events when I knew I didn't want to go. I used to do that a lot, but I don't do that anymore. I perfected the art of no. No is a complete sentence. So much so that it makes others uneasy when I say no. I don't know why. We need to have healthy eating habits, right? So we need to feed our body. Work out. Don't skip your gym days. I'm speaking to myself here. Don't skip your gym days, okay? I know we may not like them, but in order for it to become part of our routine and our schedule, we have to stick to it. I'm speaking to myself specifically. So that's other ways that we can make sure that we're not burning out. Don't skip gym days. I know it doesn't sound like that, but it is an important part of not burning out. How can I say this? Don't lose sleep. I know it sounds very simple, but it's not, right? Because not only do we have work things to deal with, we have subconscious stress that is not always at the forefront of our minds. But we have to find a way to balance and give our brain a moment to rest. Our bodies, our internal systems need to rest and do what they're supposed to do at night. I'm going to say night because I read somewhere that our bodies are supposed to, we're not supposed to be up past midnight. I read that somewhere. I don't remember exactly where. So I'm going to stick with that night, okay? If your schedule is where you work at night and you're home in the day, then just make it apply to you. Okay. So basically, burnout is when we put out too much and we have too little recovery. So it doesn't mean we have to put out work. You gotta be careful because I'm from a culture where we say pause real quick. Like pause, hold on, wait a minute, what are you saying? Right? So we still have to contribute to our responsibilities and make time to do what we have to do, but we also don't want to burn ourselves. So really it's just about balancing. So quick tips. I'm always going to present some quick tips because again, we're going through this together and I'm speaking about things that I experience and also I can personally relate to. So I'm not here preaching to anyone because these things also I can speak to personally. So as I stated, the hustle culture is not going anywhere, right? It's here to stay, especially in this concrete jungle that we live in. I love that phrase. It perfectly describes the city that I live in. I love it. But I've digressed. So we need to redefine what the hustle culture is for each and every one of us so that we can be successful, right? But not to the point of exhaustion, not to the point where we're hurting ourselves. So these are some tips and these are some phrases, some things that I do, some things I say to myself and I remind myself so that, oh shucks, my lid was closed. Oh. Sorry. These are some things that I say to myself to remind myself to take it easy, take it a step back, right? So one of the key things that I'm always saying, and I say to my team, I say to myself, is that we need to work smarter, not harder. I don't know who originally came up with this phrase. I have no idea, but I definitely think it. And so this is the idea that success and productivity are not always as a result of the grind, but using better methods and tools to achieve your results. So that is the definition of working smarter, not harder. So staying late all the time because you had a day filled with meetings, that's not helpful because you're tired. So, and I've definitely had those days where I've had heavy meeting days. So almost, oh my goodness, from maybe 10 to 4, I have meetings. So what I do, leading right into my next tip, which is time management, I look at my calendar because my calendar, I put almost everything in my calendar. Something's not in my calendar, maybe I just didn't have a chance to put it there. So I'm always looking at my calendar for that next day because it helps me to. So if I know that I might have a top heavy day on Wednesday and I know that there are certain things that I have that I want to do, then I try to get those done before Wednesday or try to map it out where I can do it after Wednesday. So in my time management, I do what's called hyper prioritizing. So I look at the task that requires the task that's going to have the most impact on what I'm doing. So not that it's not important or not that other tasks may not be important, but there are some tasks that if you don't do them, they can have an impact, let's say, on the entire organization, or they can snowball into other plans that you have for your family or for your personal life, right? So that's just an example, a simple example of hyper prioritizing. So when I'm looking at my calendar, in order for me to figure out how I'm going to manage my time, my tasks, my day, my week, I have to prioritize. not just for work things, but for also for personal things. So if we have an event that we need to go to for a family member, and let's say it's 2 hours away, you're going to, you know, if you don't know where it is, what I do is I always ask for the address. I map that out just to see how long it's going to take to get there. So now I know how long I need to get myself ready, get the little one ready. If other family members are riding with us, gotta pick that up, pick them up. So all of that is part of prepping and time management. That's all a part of it. A lot of these terms, we hear them in corporate or in the workplace, but you apply them to your life, apply them to your personal life. If it works for you in your workplace, it should be able to work for you in your personal life, right? So yeah, definitely time management is a must. Hyper prioritizing is a must. And problem resolution. I know there's problem solving and there's also problem resolution. So I want to resolve a problem so it goes away, so that it doesn't keep appearing, right? Solve a problem, you might deal with it for now, but it might come back again. So I like to deal with problem resolution. So if there are things outside of my control, of course, we know there's always going to be something that's outside of our control, but we work around that. Okay. Again, I talked about teamwork. If you have a team, if you have a network, together everyone achieves more. I believe in that acronym. I know it's probably cheesy. I know it's probably corny. I get it. But I believe in it. I believe in that. Together everyone achieves more, because that means that you trust your team. You trust the people that's in your network, that they're truly going to support you. So lean on your support system. And also learn and grow. In the hustle culture, you want to develop yourself as well, right? I know it may not sound like something to do in the hustle culture, but you should do it, because I always try to remember this old proverb, and I looked it up because I wanted to make sure I said it correctly. Okay? It's give a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. I think that is extremely important, because even in this hustle culture, you always want to learn. You always want to make sure that you keep yourself abreast of new technology, new policies, new laws, new ways to do things, best practices, and whatever you want to know. The one constant is change. So we always want to make sure that we can change and adapt. And like I said, it may not sound like the way to, redefine success in the hustle culture, but I truly believe that it is, because I always think that you should always keep learning and growing. Okay, set boundaries. Set boundaries in everything, for work, for family time, for friends. Set boundaries with everything. It makes a difference. I already said, learn how to say no. Don't overcommit, right? We already mentioned that earlier. Make time for things that you enjoy. Very simple. If you don't enjoy doing something, don't do it. I understand that there are some obligations we have to keep. I'm not telling you to, brush off your obligations, right? I'm not telling you that. But if it's not an obligatory event or task, then you can say no, right? Set boundaries. So the hustle culture is real. Just like social media, it ain't going anywhere, because unless we have already achieved that specific level of success that allows us to live in the comforts that we want and allows us to have the passive income for us to do all the extra things that we want, we are going to continuously be hustling. And I don't want it to sound like, you're out here, stick them up, give me what you have. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about if you have specific goals, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about if you have different goals and milestones in your life that you want to achieve, and you have a deadline to do that. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm hustling, I'm grinding, that's my next side hustle to get me, you know, that house, or to get me this, or to get me that. I'm always grinding, I'm always hustling. We hear those things. Well, I'm from New York, so I hear. I don't know where you're from. Maybe they don't say it in those words. Maybe they use other words. Maybe their actions show that, right? But just because of whatever it is your goals are, you might always be in a hustle mindset, but make it work for you where you're not experiencing burnout. Make your definition of success and how you apply those principles fit what your goals and your values are for your life. Okay? It's okay to slow down. I feel guilty at times when I talked about, the workaholic aspect of me, and I know it's not healthy, and I know that there are definitely other people like me, but it's not healthy if we're not applying it appropriately. And I know sometimes when I don't overwork, I sometimes feel guilty because I'm so used to doing it, but I can't afford to do that anymore because I have a priority now. My priority is my daughter and my family. So I can't give all of that time to another person's business anymore. I can give you time, yes, because I have signed up to do this job. I have a responsibility and I will own that responsibility. But I can't be a workaholic for an organization anymore. If I'm going to be a workaholic, I'm going to apply that to myself and my family. So it benefits my family. So I feel guilt sometimes when I, turn off my computer at a certain time because normally I would be working. But then I also feel guilty because I'm working so much and I don't spend as much time with my baby girl because I'm at work. So the little bit of time that I spend with her, I make it count. I'm 100% focused on her. So we have so many different reasons why we're still out here in this hustle culture and we're going, nonstop. We have all these different reasons, but let's still figure out how to make it work for us so that we don't burn ourselves out because we can't give from an empty cup. We can't give, not even to ourselves. I can remember one time when I still lived at home, I think I was maybe an entire day, almost a day and a half, that I didn't eat anything. I don't even think I drank water. And I got up, or I tried to get up, and my body said, girl, please, we have no energy. I had to crawl from the bedroom to the kitchen. I had to eat an apple and drink an orange juice in order to get some type of energy so that I could even stand. So I say that to say, when our bodies are ready to shut us down, it will shut you down. So don't let it get to that point, right? Let's take the proactive measures. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's time manage. Let's plan. Okay? So those are two of the key things to help in this hustle culture. There's things that are outside of our control, but I think those two things we can help. Okay? So let's let go of this team no sleep, of this I'll sleep when I'm dead. Let's let go of that because our bodies are like, what? All right, keep playing with me. Lights out. We don't want that. Stress is a silent killer because our body goes in fight or flight mode. And we don't know which one is going to go in, right? The foods we're eating, we have to pay attention to those. We have to treat our bodies as a vessel because we need it, okay? So let's get out of this team no sleep, I'll sleep when I'm dead, all of these phrases. Let's get out of that and let's figure out a better way to achieve our goals without it being a detriment to ourselves. Okay, we need to rest and reset so that we can continue to be a part of this hustle culture and so that we can thrive and reach our goals. Okay, and with that, thank you so much for listening. So if you heard something here, if you agree with it, or if you know someone who this might be helpful for, please